Let me tell you about a kind of suffering that hides in plain sight. It doesn't look like the depression you see in movies. There are no dramatic breakdowns, no days spent unable to leave bed, no visible collapse that makes people rush to your side with concern. Instead, it's quiet, it's functional. It's the kind of pain that gets dressed every morning, goes to work, answers messages, and even manages to smile. From the outside, you look fine, maybe even successful. But inside, there's a heaviness that never quite lifts, an exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix, a numbness that colours everything grey, even when your life looks bright on paper. This is high-functioning depression, and it's one of the most misunderstood forms of mental struggle because it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't scream for help. It whispers. It operates in the margins of your life, in the moments between tasks, in the quiet hours when you're alone with your thoughts. And because you're still functioning, because you haven't fallen apart in ways other people can see, your pain gets dismissed. Even by yourself. You tell yourself you're fine, you're managing. Other people have it worse. You don't have the right to struggle when you're still showing up, still performing, still maintaining the appearance of okay. But here's what most people don't understand about high-functioning depression. It's not about how well you're functioning. It's about the enormous effort it takes to maintain that function. It's about the gap between how you appear and how you feel. And that gap, that constant performance of wellness while drowning internally, is exhausting in ways that are hard to explain to someone who's never experienced it. So today, we're going to talk about the 6 signs of high-functioning depression. Not to diagnose yourself, but to help you recognize what you might have been ignoring. To give you permission to acknowledge that just because you're functioning doesn't mean you're fine. The first sign of high-functioning depression is persistent exhaustion that isn't relieved by rest. You sleep, sometimes even more than you should, but you wake up tired. Not just physically tired, but emotionally and mentally depleted. There's a heaviness in your bones that has nothing to do with how much sleep you got or how hard you worked. It's a fatigue that lives deeper in your soul, in your will to engage with life. And the confusing part is that you're still doing things. You're going to work, running errands, meeting obligations. From the outside, you have energy. But inside, every single task feels like you're moving through water. Psychologically, this exhaustion is your body's response to carrying an invisible weight. Depression, even the high-functioning kind, activates your stress response system chronically. Your cortisol levels remain elevated. Your nervous system stays in a state of low-level emergency. And while you're not having panic attacks or visible breakdowns, your body is working overtime just to maintain baseline function. That's why simple things feel monumental. Answering a text becomes a task you have to psych yourself up for. Making dinner feels like climbing a mountain. Taking a shower requires mental preparation. These aren't signs of laziness. They're signs that your system is depleted. And here's what makes this particularly insidious. Because you're still managing to do these things, you don't give yourself credit for how hard it actually is. You compare yourself to your past self, the version of you who did these things effortlessly, and you feel like you're failing, but you're not failing. You're functioning despite carrying a burden most people can't see. That exhaustion you feel isn't weakness. It's your mind and body telling you that something is wrong, that the effort it's taking to appear normal is unsustainable. Real rest, the kind that actually restores you, requires more than sleep. It requires addressing the underlying depletion. And that starts with acknowledging that your exhaustion is real, valid, and a sign that you need support, not more willpower. The second sign is emotional numbness, disguised as calm. You're not crying all the time. You're not visibly sad. In fact, you might appear remarkably stable, even-keeled, unaffected by things that would normally move you. But that's not peace, that's disconnection. You've gone numb as a protective mechanism. Joy feels muted, sadness feels distant. Even anger, which used to come easily when something was unjust, now barely registers. You're going through life on autopilot, feeling everything through a thick layer of glass. You're present, but not really there. You're watching your own life happen without fully participating in it. Psychologically, this numbness is called emotional blunting, and it's a hallmark of depression. Your brain, overwhelmed by persistent negative emotions, starts to dampen all emotions to protect you from the pain. It's like turning down the volume on everything because some of the sounds were too loud to bear. But when you turn down the volume on suffering, you also turn it down on joy. You stop feeling excited about things you used to love. Music doesn't move you the way it once did. Achievements feel hollow. Good news lands flat. You smile and say thank you, but inside, there's nothing. Just a quiet emptiness where feeling used to be. And the danger of this sign is that it masquerades as maturity. People might even compliment you on how calm you are, how you don't let things get to you. You might take pride in your emotional control, thinking you've finally achieved some kind of Zen-like detachment. But detachment and depression are not the same thing. Healthy detachment is a choice, a mindful decision to not let external circumstances control your inner peace. Depression-induced numbness is not a choice, it's a symptom. It's your emotional system shutting down because it can't handle the load anymore. And while it might feel safer than the pain, it's also stealing your capacity to experience the richness of being alive. Because life isn't meant to be felt through glass. It's meant to be felt fully, the pain and the beauty, the grief and the joy, the whole messy spectrum of human emotion. The third sign is using productivity as a distraction from inner emptiness. You're always busy, always working on something, always moving from one task to the next. And from the outside, you look ambitious, driven, successful even. But the truth is, you're running. You're filling every moment with doing because stopping means feeling, and feeling means confronting the emptiness you've been avoiding. As long as you're busy, you don't have to sit with the questions that haunt you. Am I okay? Am I happy? Is this all there is? So you work longer hours than necessary. You take on extra projects. You volunteer for things you don't have time for. You create a life so full of obligations that there's no space left for the uncomfortable truth of how you actually feel. Psychologically, this is called productive avoidance, and it's particularly common in high-functioning depression because our culture rewards it. We celebrate busyness. We admire people who are always grinding, always achieving. So your coping mechanism gets mistaken for excellence. You get promoted. You get praised. You get external validation that reinforces the very behavior that's slowly destroying you from the inside. And the cruel irony is that the more successful you become through this pattern, the harder it is to stop. Because stopping would mean admitting that all this achievement hasn't filled the void, that you can check every box and still feel fundamentally unfulfilled. This kind of depression doesn't look sad. It looks successful. It looks like someone who has their life together. But underneath the impressive resume and the packed calendar is someone who's terrified of stillness. Because in stillness, the truth emerges. The truth that you're exhausted, that you're not okay, that all this doing hasn't translated into being, into actually feeling alive. And when you finally do stop, when you take a vacation or have a rare free weekend, you don't feel relief, you feel worse. The anxiety creeps in. The emptiness becomes deafening. So you cut the break short. You find something else to do. You convince yourself you're just someone who likes to stay busy. But deep down, you know you're not running towards something. You're running away from yourself. The fourth sign is persistent self-criticism and negative self-talk. You function, you accomplish things, but nothing you do ever feels good enough. There's a constant voice in your head cataloguing your flaws, your mistakes, the ways you're falling short. You compare yourself to others and always come up lacking. You minimize your achievements and magnify your failures. When someone compliments you, you deflect or dismiss it because you genuinely can't see what they see. And this isn't humility. This is a distorted lens through which you view yourself, one that's been warped by depression. Psychologically, depression alters your cognitive patterns. It creates what therapists call negative automatic thoughts, a constant stream of criticism that runs in the background of your mind like toxic background music. You are not enough. You are failing. You are disappointing everyone. You should be doing better. And because you're high functioning, because you're still meeting external standards, these thoughts are particularly insidious. From the outside, you're doing well. But from the inside, you're convinced you're barely holding it together, that you're one mistake away from being exposed as a fraud. This is imposter syndrome on steroids, fueled by a depressive filter that refuses to let you see yourself accurately. And here's what makes this so damaging. This negative self-talk isn't just unpleasant. It actively drains your energy and motivation. Every accomplishment gets filtered through a lens of, it wasn't that impressive, or anyone could have done that. So you never get the emotional reward that should come from achievement. You never get to rest in the satisfaction of a job well done. You're constantly chasing a finish line that keeps moving, trying to prove your worth to a critic that lives inside your own head and can never be satisfied. Real self-improvement comes from a place of self-compassion. But depression-driven perfectionism comes from a place of self-punishment. And you can't hate yourself into becoming someone you love. The fifth sign is social withdrawal, masked as introversion or being selective. You cancel plans, but you have good reasons. You're tired from work, you have things to do, you need to recharge. And all of that might be true on the surface, but underneath, there's something else happening. Being around people has started to feel like a performance you don't have energy for. Maintaining conversations feels exhausting. Pretending to be okay when you're not feels impossible. So you isolate, not dramatically, but gradually. You stop reaching out. You let friendships fade into occasional text exchanges. You convince yourself you're just busy, or that you've outgrown certain relationships. But the truth is, you're withdrawing because connection requires vulnerability, and you don't have the capacity for that right now. Psychologically, social withdrawal is both a symptom and a maintenance factor of depression. It's a symptom because depression makes social interaction genuinely harder. Your energy is depleted, your emotional range is limited, and the thought of being perceived feels overwhelming. But it's also a maintenance factor because isolation feeds depression. Human beings are social creatures. We need connection, authentic connection, to thrive. When we withdraw, we lose access to one of the most powerful buffers against depression, meaningful relationships. But high-functioning depression is sneaky about this. You're not completely isolated. You still show up to work. You still interact with people in structured settings. So it doesn't look like withdrawal, it looks like preference. And you might genuinely believe you're just becoming more introverted, more selective about who you spend time with. But ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you felt truly connected to someone? When was the last time you shared what you're actually going through instead of giving the sanitized version? When was the last time being with someone left you feeling energized instead of drained? If those moments are rare or non-existent, it's not because you're an introvert. It's because you've built walls around yourself that keep pain out, but also keep genuine connection out. And while those walls might feel protective, they're also keeping you trapped in your struggle, alone with thoughts and feelings that are too heavy to carry by yourself. The sixth sign is a persistent sense of emptiness or lack of purpose, despite external success. You have the job, the relationship, the apartment, the life that's supposed to make you happy. On paper, everything looks good, maybe even great. But inside, there's a hollowness that won't go away. You keep thinking, is this it? Is this all there is? You accomplish goals and feel nothing. You reach milestones, and instead of satisfaction, you just feel empty. Like you're going through the motions of a life that belongs to someone else. Like you're waiting for something to click, for some moment when it all finally feels meaningful, but that moment never comes. Psychologically, this is called anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure or find meaning in things that should be rewarding. It's a core symptom of depression, and in high-functioning depression, it's particularly confusing because your life circumstances don't match your internal experience. You look at your life and think, I should be grateful. I should be happy. Other people would kill for what I have. And that gap between should and reality becomes another source of shame. You start to believe there's something fundamentally broken in you, that you're ungrateful or incapable of happiness. But that's not true. You're not broken. You're depressed. And depression doesn't care about your circumstances. It's not a logical response to external conditions. It's a medical condition that affects how your brain processes reward, meaning, and emotion. This existential emptiness is particularly painful because it can't be fixed by achieving more or acquiring more. You've probably already tried that. You've told yourself, once I get this promotion, once I move to this city, once I reach this goal, then I'll feel fulfilled. But you reach the goal and the emptiness remains. Because what you're experiencing isn't a lack of external success. It's a lack of internal connection. Connection to yourself, to your values, to what actually matters to you beyond what you've been told should matter. Depression has severed that connection. It's made everything feel meaningless because it's disrupted the neural pathways that create meaning. And no amount of external achievement can fix an internal neurochemical imbalance. So those are the 6 signs. Persistent exhaustion that rest doesn't fix. Emotional numbness disguised as calm. Using productivity to avoid inner emptiness. Constant self-criticism despite functioning well. Social withdrawal masked as preference. And a sense of purposelessness despite external success. If you recognize multiple of these signs in yourself, I want you to know something important. You're not imagining it. You're not being dramatic. You're not weak for struggling when your life looks fine from the outside. High-functioning depression is real. It's valid. And it's incredibly common among people who've learned to suffer in silence. The thing about high-functioning depression is that it's easy to dismiss. Even mental health professionals sometimes miss it because you don't fit the typical picture of someone in crisis. You're showing up, you're performing, you're managing. But managing is not the same as thriving. Functioning is not the same as being okay. And the fact that you can still do things doesn't mean those things aren't costing you everything you have. You're not functioning well. You're functioning despite the exhaustion, despite the numbness, despite the emptiness. And that despite is important because it shows how much strength you're using just to appear normal. Here's what you need to understand. Depression doesn't always look like falling apart. Sometimes it looks like holding yourself together with such force that you can't feel anything anymore. It looks like being so good at pretending that you start to believe your own performance. It looks like achieving everything you're supposed to, want while feeling none of the satisfaction you're supposed to feel. And that's not a personal failure. That's a mental health condition that deserves treatment, support, and compassion. From others, yes, but most importantly, from yourself. So what do you do if you recognize yourself in these signs? First, stop minimizing your experience. Stop telling yourself it's not that bad because you're still functional. Stop comparing your struggle to others and deciding yours isn't valid enough for help. Your pain is real, whether or not it's visible. Your struggle is legitimate, whether or not you're still meeting your responsibilities. You don't have to wait until you're completely falling apart to deserve support. In fact, reaching out now, while you're still functioning, is one of the smartest things you can do, because prevention is easier than crisis management. Addressing this now, before it gets worse, is self-awareness, not weakness. Second, consider talking to a professional. I know, that feels like a big step, especially when you're managing to keep your life together. But therapy isn't just for people in crisis. It's for anyone who's struggling, anyone who wants to feel better, anyone who's carrying more than they should carry alone. A good therapist can help you understand what's happening, develop coping strategies that actually work, and potentially explore whether medication might help. Because high-functioning depression often has biological components. Your brain chemistry is off, and sometimes that requires more than just willpower or positive thinking to fix. There's no shame in needing help. There's only courage in asking for it. Third, start being honest about how you're actually doing. Not just with professionals, but with people you trust. You've gotten very good at saying, "I'm fine," when you're not. At giving people the version of you they expect, instead of the version that's real. But that performance is exhausting, and it's keeping you isolated in your struggle. You don't have to announce your depression to everyone, but find one person, a friend, a family member, someone who can hold space for the truth. Someone you can say to, "I'm not okay," without having to explain or justify or minimize. That kind of honest connection is healing in ways that suffering alone can never be. Fourth, examine your relationship with productivity. If you're using busyness to avoid your feelings, you need to consciously create space for stillness, even when it's uncomfortable. Start small. 5 minutes of sitting with yourself without distraction. Notice what comes up. Notice the urge to fill the silence with doing. Sit with it anyway. Because healing requires you to stop running long enough to feel what you've been avoiding. And yes, it will be uncomfortable at first. Yes, the emptiness will feel louder. But that discomfort is not dangerous. It's informative. It's showing you what needs attention. Fifth, practice self-compassion, like your life depends on it. Because in many ways, it does. That critical voice in your head, the one that tells you you're not enough, that you should be doing better, that voice is not telling you the truth. It's a symptom of your depression, not an accurate reflection of reality. Start talking to yourself the way you would talk to a friend who's struggling. You wouldn't tell them they're weak for being depressed. You wouldn't minimize their pain because they're still going to work. You wouldn't demand they just try harder to be happy. You'd be gentle. You'd be understanding. You'd acknowledge how hard they're trying. Do that for yourself. You're doing the best you can with the resources you have. And that's enough. You are enough, even when you don't feel like it. Sixth, understand that recovery isn't linear, and it doesn't mean you'll never struggle again. It means you'll develop tools to recognize when you're slipping, to ask for help before you're drowning, to be gentle with yourself. During the hard seasons, high-functioning depression taught you how to survive. Recovery can teach you how to actually live, how to feel again, not just numbness, but the full range of emotions, how to rest without guilt, how to connect without performing, how to find meaning that comes from alignment with your values, not achievement of external goals. That kind of life is possible, but it requires you to stop pretending you're fine and start getting the help you deserve. In the end, high-functioning depression is a lonely experience because you're surrounded by people who can't see you're struggling, but you don't have to stay in that loneliness. You don't have to keep performing wellness while suffering internally. You don't have to wait until you're in crisis to deserve care. Your pain is valid right now, exactly as it is. Your exhaustion is real. Your numbness is a symptom, not a character flaw. Your emptiness is not a reflection of your worth. It's a sign that you need support, rest, and probably professional help. And I know part of you is scared that if you stop functioning, everything will fall apart. Scared that if you admit you're struggling, people will see you differently. Scared that you'll be judged or dismissed or told you're overreacting. But here's the truth. You're already falling apart. You're just doing it quietly, privately, while maintaining the facade of okay. And that's harder, lonelier, and more painful than asking for help could ever be. So please, if you recognize yourself in these signs, take it seriously. Reach out, talk to someone, see a therapist, tell a friend. Do something different than what you've been doing, because what you've been doing is slowly breaking you. You deserve more than functional. You deserve to feel alive. You deserve moments of genuine joy, not just absence of visible sadness. You deserve rest that actually restores you. You deserve to be seen, truly seen, not just for what you accomplish, but for who. You are beneath the performance. And that life, that full, connected, meaningful life, it's possible, but it starts with acknowledging the truth you've been hiding, that you're struggling, that you need help. That being high-functioning doesn't mean you're fine. It just means you've gotten really good at pretending, and you don't have to pretend anymore.